It's Chillmonger Moon Knight episode 2. This time, I'm not going to be copyrighted because I'll just show you some still images and talk over it. Like this one here, when Moon Knight or Stephen Grant wakes up and he's in absolute frenzy. It's not specifically said what he was dreaming, but from the sounds and voices, we can imagine it was definitely Moon Knight related Mark Spector stuff. Stephen Grant returns to the museum where they were investigating something. He seems to know what's going on. So he tells his buddy, who still calls him Scotty, to check this out. Hey, let me just warn you, though, because it's going to be really crazy. And I just want to prepare you. And he's talking to him so much that it was obvious that that buildup would climactically not reach its climax, that there would be nothing. And so this is where we discover that what he sees is all in his head. All of the monsters, whether it's the jackal or even Khonshu himself, isn't actually happening, except it is actually happening, and they'll explain that later with Layla, that they're physically there, just not can be seen. So we see Mark Spector here without the suit, but manages to get him out of the situation in the museum. Maybe Mark Spector is aware of the cameras and didn't suit up. Mark Spector seems to know what's going on here. Mark Spector is a victim, honestly, especially when we get to the ending and see that he's really being held hostage by Khonshu. This brings us to where Steven now has a big session. He's going to lose all of his jobs. Thankfully, the museum are not pressing charges. That's great for the story to commence without him being having to be stopped or a fugitive or whatnot. But he does have to return that name tag, everything that belongs to the museum. Why does he return the name tag? You're probably thinking, well, Steven is a very common name. You guys ever see Family Feud? If you were on that show and you have a common name, you're not the first one to be wearing that name tag. They collect things like that. It's just much more easier. No matter how rich and valuable this is a public museum. They needed that name tag. So thank you, Steven, for the name tag. So now Steven's down on his luck and he talks to his golden boy who moves. And through talking to him, he figures, hey, what about that storage locker? Let me just use everything that I know I have on Mark Spector. And he goes to the storage locker where he finds a gun. Many of you American viewers may not know this, but that's a weapon for killing people, and it's not normal for it to just be around. It's actually illegal in England. So that's shocking. So is the money, so is everything else in there. He has a little session now with Mark where they kind of discuss. And the exposition that was dumped on us was very major, and I don't even mind how it happens. I know you got to be creative with the way you get exposition. All they did was they said, "Do you really want to know? Okay, I'll tell you. I serve Khonshu. I'm his avatar, which means you are too, sort of. We protect the vulnerable and deliver Khonshu's justice to those who hurt them." Okay, good to know that you're one of the good guys, or you think that you're the good guy. You're also a victim. But Mark Spector breaks it down. I now know who Khonshu is. Khonshu now outside of the locker because Steven refuses to give him his powers. What? Tell me why Khonshu is appearing slowly, walking with the lights. Spooky, yeah, greatly shot, but it just doesn't make sense because the next time we see him, now the back of Khonshu is towards Stephen Grant, and he just sort of turns around. Okay, what's going on, guys? Can Khonshu just appear anywhere he wants to? Yes. So why doesn't he just appear in front of Mark all the time? I don't understand how sometimes he's slowly walking to you, sometimes he just apparates right next to you. It's illogical and it needs to be fixed. They do a lot of good stuff in here to help to make the show smooth and not make me question why Layla pulled up. It's because she was tracking the phone. Why? Because Mark wanted her to track the phone. They do that and it's nice writing, but just explain to me how Khonshu sometimes he's right in front of you and sometimes he's watching from a distance just to be scary. The whole first episode, he could never just approach Stephen Grant. I don't get it. I don't get why sometimes it's a voice and why sometimes it's just him appearing in person. There was also a scarab in that bag I should have explained. And yes, that is what Mark retrieved, and it's what Stephen Grant wasn't able to give away in that first episode. Layla gets her hand on the scarab. She recognizes it. She fought trying to capture that thing. And why didn't Mark explain it to her? Why does he keep calling himself Stephen Grant? She's kind of out of the blue. Unfortunately, she's gonna be hurt now. She's part of this whole thing, and she's an innocent bystander. And she's what's gonna be used against Mark Spector, which is why I'm telling you, Mark Spector is a victim. The cop now comes in here, touches the evidence, which was very strange for that cop to actually go to the bed and compromise the chains because that's supposed to be, that should have been my first clue that it wasn't a true cop, but it's not a true cop. When the cops see that he's got a USA passport, they apprehend Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, take him to where they need to take him to, the quarters of Arthur Amit, the Amit Avatar, the guy who used to be, as he tells us, the avatar of Khonshu. And he's like, I bet I can tell what he's saying right now. Something about vengeance. Hey, This show doesn't hide from the whole Batman comparison thing. They specifically said Fist of Vengeance. That was it. They didn't edit that out either. So they want you guys to be calling him the Batman of Marvel. They're not shy from that. I wouldn't. I would want to stand alone on my own merits of my own character, my own identity. But I don't know, getting the rub of being Marvel's version of Batman may seem like something that they care about. That's in line with this company. At dinner, Arthur tries his best to convince us he's a good guy. Oh, you're a vegan. I'm a vegan too. Hey, if it wasn't for that first scene in the first episode, he might actually have me here and make me question things. But it didn't take him too long for him to explain how we're all about killing kids over here. What? Oh, I'm sorry, huh? He tried to make a little analogy of how you would amputate a limb just to save your own self, and it's a necessary sacrifice. Horrible. And Mark, or rather Steven, shut that shit down. No, we don't believe that. That's not okay. And I like how he was like, no, because everyone always tries to make an analogy or some sort of way to rationalize what their extreme is. And it's just not a good example because someone's actually getting hurt and it involves hurting children. So no, we don't do that. It's a whole Civil War II preemptive justice stuff. This is the same thing, same kind of dilemma. Carol Danvers, she was like, okay, we can use this guy to predict stuff. Tony was like, let's not use someone to predict incidences before they happen. You don't want to put an innocent guy in jail. Arthur's asking to see Mark. I want to see Mark. The only guy who doesn't want to see Mark in this show is Stephen Grant. Let's expose it. Let's do it. Because now I like Mark. Now I see Mark as the hero of the story, and he needs to put on the suit. Layla comes in to save them, to save him. Layla brings in a scarab. Arthur brings in a cane. The cane brings in a jackal, and they leave. The jackal comes out of the floor with like purple, ominous energy light. That's familiar with Agatha Harkness. And if there's something I'm going to compare to the MCU, it's that and only that. Will she make an appearance here, or will it somehow link to the new show that Agatha Harkness is having? Maybe. Let's just make a note of it. And then comes the fighting scene. Layla throws something liquid on the monster, and the outline of the monster shows us that while he is invisible, can't be seen, he's tangible, he's there, he's physically affecting the world. Just like when Khonshu was kind of blowing wind and kind of making things kind of rumble, that's about all he can do. Well, this jackal thing is sort of the same parameters in the Egyptian. They're in another realm, or who knows what the hell it's called. But all that matters is physical stuff does affect them. During the fight scene, there's a whole bunch of scenes where it looks like Moon Knight is fighting nothing. Why? Because the world sees nothing. Is it cheap and inexpensive? Hell yeah. That's how you save money. They show us a guy basically pulling and yanking against this thing. As you can see, there's probably a guy in a green suit, literally just wearing green, so he can be phased out who Moon Knight is actually fighting over here. Moon Knight is talking trash, very London type slang. Adam from the YouTube channel A Duder Reviews says he could tell that Oscar Isaac isn't from there, and as someone who's native, I give it to them, whether or not it is authentic. But they could have fooled me. I thought Oscar Isaac's doing a great job here performing with both characters and with the accent specifically on Stephen Grant. So we're switching between the invisible jackal shots and the shots where he's actually there. And those are usually taken from a farther away place. I guess you don't got to get the details and everything specifically and it's easier to do, easier to get away with. That's fine, man. Because they're doing just enough, giving me just enough of the jackal or the monsters where I feel like, yeah, they're there. Enough. Stephen Grant finally gives the power and control away to Mark Spector, finally, because people were going to get hurt. All right, fine, let's give it up. And this transformation here, this is what the Moon Knight suit looks like. In the middle of Moon Knight's chest, there's these removable weapons he can use. I don't know if they can kind of return to him on command, the same way sometimes we saw Captain America do with his shield. It'd be nice if they could. And there was a graphic death to this jackal creature. However, because it's a creature and it's not a human, then they can get away with it. Remember that. I hate that people use TV PG, TV rated R as their parameter of what's acceptable, what's not. This was graphic, gory, and violent. And just because that thing is not technically a human being, it's allowed to slip through the cracks of these rating systems. We give way too much importance to rating systems. This was violent and nasty and very adult themed and not something you want your 8-year-old to be watching, even your 11-year-old to be watching. This was very hardcore, okay? So the monster turns to dust here, and yes, the Moon Knight weapon does return on command. Before we close the episode, there's one last talk between Mark and Steven, and we learn Steven is not in control anymore. The powers, if they've loosened, now that Mark has the body, he's not going to give it up yet. not until he has to. So then that begs the question, why did he release the powers the other time? Enter Khonshu. You think you own this body? You're altering the terms of the agreement. I own you. I run you. And let's hope something bad doesn't happen to Layla. Whoa. Mark Spector just became a good little character here. So they're doing a great job here with Moon Knight, the character. I want him to be unleashed from the shackles of Khonshu. Khonshu, I recognize a bad guy. So do I with Amit and his avatar Arthur. Let's go to Egypt and let's see what happens. It's time to get the scarab and it's time to get the Amit's tomb first. So he awakens at a hotel room, which means that you had enough time to go to bed. Okay, what's going on? I thought it was an urgent matter. You think that Arthur and those guys also waited? The heroes get to this Egyptian Gaza pyramids first. Good for them. But they also knew enough where, it's okay. We can take a rest now. That's BS. If the mission is of top importance, let's get their lickety split and spend no time waiting for the daylight, getting some sleep or whatever it is that they needed to do. So aside from the short-sightedness or things that I've called out as complaints, this was quality entertainment. I loved this show so far. The first episode was strong. The second episode was strong. Don't drop the ball, guys. Hawkeye started good for me. And then it sort of meandered. And then it sort of was like, could have been better. So far, so great. By Moon Knight. Falcon Winter Soldier is still my favorite. I'm going to be doing 33 burning questions on this show coming this weekend. So check that out on Saturday. And I'll be definitely talking to Trinity from Second Street Marvel. That would be at 11 o'clock Eastern this morning, Wednesday morning. It may already be up. It may be up right now. So check out that video. It'll be live streamed with me and Trinity from Second Street Marvel.